Now, moving on to that final Midwest region where Purdue is the number one seed for the second straight year. I don't think we need to rehash what happened last year against FDU. And of course, it's like the committee wants to have the feel good story and get the albatross off of Purdue, or as one of my good friends puts it, one suit Rick with Tennessee, and Rick Barnes only needs one suit because he's not going to get out of the first weekend. So you got Purdue, you got Tennessee is two of the bigger what's that, disappointment, underachiever, whatever.
Underachieve.
The thing is, prior to last year, Purdue really wasn't like they had good runs in the tournament. Now, granted, they always weren't as a one seed, but yeah, I think Tennessee is the underachiever. And again, if you look at the last 18 games, Rick Barnes is the head coach. His teams are 3-14-1.
Wow.
He's made it past the first weekend twice in 11 trips, and he's never beaten a team seeded higher, 0-7. That's since the Texas Elite Eight run in 2008. So there they are. All the negative Rick Barnes numbers that we certainly know about, and certainly we know Purdue last 3 years. You've lost to a 16, a 15, and a 13 the last three tournaments. First team ever to be eliminated by a team 12th or lower in 3 consecutive tournaments. So there they are. There's the gloom and doom for Purdue and Tennessee, the top 2 seeds. The number 3 is Creighton, and the number 4 is Kansas. So if you look at this region in terms of one of these top 3 seeds getting bounced in the first weekend, I don't think Purdue will lose to Utah State or TCU. I mean, Utah State's a team that came out of nowhere. And if you look at Jamie Dixon and TCU, like he hasn't made it out of the first weekend in forever. So TCU is a team that I had higher hopes for, but I just can't see them. So I do think Purdue will get out. I think Tennessee is a team that has to worry. And I say because if you look at their potential second round opponent, you're either going to have Texas, and you know the story there, or maybe you get UVA, and UVA is going to slow that game down to a crawl, and then we'll see how Tennessee reacts. So if you're looking, and can Akron beat Creighton? Sure. Could Creighton lose to South Carolina or Oregon? Sure, but I think just because of the storylines, if I had to pick one of those top 3 seeds to go out early, Tennessee would be the way I would lean, Will.
I don't know if I don't like Virginia against Colorado State too. And again, we're trying to stay away from these playing games. I think if Colorado State got past Virginia, which I expect them to, I think with the coach, I think with their defense, I think they could present some things that would bother Tennessee. It's funny, you mentioned Tennessee and Purdue. It sparked a painful memory. I think it was 2019. I had a fat future on Tennessee, and they were up late against Purdue. They rallied back, and I think they fouled a 3-point shooter late. It was a very shaky call. It should not have been a foul. And then Purdue went on. That was a great game against Virginia the next round in that crazy comeback for Virginia. But I pretty much agree with everything you said. Colorado State's a team to keep an eye on. This isn't a bracket I love. I do like Creighton. I like their offense. They get a lot at the rim. They don't foul. They get a lot of threes, a lot at the rim. So they were almost in the Final Four last year. I like this Creighton team.
I like them too, man. I totally agree. I've got them going really far in this bracket. But that second game against South Carolina or Oregon is going to be a war. And I think that's a fascinating game too, right? Because if you made South Carolina, Oregon 5 days ago, the number's 3.5 or 4. But Oregon wins the Pac-12, and they opened at Pick'em at the South Point, and I'm like, wow, that's cheap. And we've seen that Gamecock money come in from pick to 1 to 1.5. So that's going to be a great game. That South Carolina Oregon game, and that winner could give Creighton everything in that second game. But I do have Creighton going far, so maybe I'm just hedging on this podcast.
I have Creighton losing to Oregon, so we're not going very far for me. So I'll just say this: the last 2 times that Oregon has made the tournament as a double-digit seed because they won the Pac-12 tournament, they made the Sweet 16. They are a team under Altman who really excels when they get hot. And part of their issues this year is they have lost the most minutes by far to injury of any rotation players. And again, guys a little bit healthy now. And when Dante can stay out of foul trouble, which is a huge problem of his, they can beat nearly anybody. When he's in foul trouble, their entire team changes. And so if they can continue this hot streak, I think they do get to the second weekend based off of the success they've had over the years. And they're healthier now than they have been all season long.
Yeah, if I had to pick a team like fourth or lower in this region to get to the Final Four, it would be Oregon, just because of what you talked about, all the injuries that they've had, and Altman being such a good tournament coach. It's weird, Sammy. You mentioned the money showing on South Carolina. Like, I wonder, like, South Carolina is another team that I've kind of had mixed success with this year betting against, because you look at them and you wonder how they keep winning games. Like they're good on the offensive glass, getting sick of it. Like they just, I can't get there with them. And you just wonder if they're going to be one of these teams that during the regular season, they've had all this luck and good fortune and found a way to win. And then come tournament time, they're going to throw up a clunker, and a team like Oregon could be there to capitalize.
Yeah, look, I didn't bet South Carolina, but I think from a numerical standpoint, there were a lot of people that were thinking that game was going to open a lot higher than it did. And I think it was DraftKings FanDuel opened at 1, and then South Point opens at pick. And I imagine there were some power rankings people that were very happy to lay pick. And that's the whole SEC also against Pac-12 angle. I mean, some groups think the SEC is the best conference in the country. We'll find out. But I know there were people that were very happy to lay pick with the Gamecocks.
Which of these 12 or lowers do you guys like to potentially pull a first round upset? Jeff, start with you.
I feel like
Oregon, because Oregon's at 11.
Under 11. No, Oregon will be my Final Four pick. Don't worry, it's coming up soon. I feel like Samford, right? If Kansas is injured, that's the big what if. They're the team. They have 6 guys that shoot over 38% from the 3-point line. They can really score. They can really score. And if Kansas is hurt, they're not going to win that game. But again, we don't know that obviously until tip time, who's going to be healthy and who's not. So I'm saying Samford for now. Could change if Kansas is healthy.
Will?
Yeah, the game where I could see anything, like it could be in a swing game where I could see like Gonzaga winning this game and making a run, or I could see McNeese beating them. I think either of those is plausible because I don't know what to make of McNeese with this schedule. Obviously, the record's gaudy. We know Wade for all of his issues as a coach, and I guess most of what he got in trouble for is pretty much legal now. But Gonzaga, maybe Gonzaga goes in this tournament and says, you know what, we're not a 1 seed. We don't have the pressure of being undefeated. Can we get it done in the tournament? They can come in this tournament as more of a sleeper, more of an underdog, and maybe that helps them. And if they can get by McNeese, maybe they're playing deep into this tournament. So that's an interesting game where I could see them losing, or I could see them making a deep run. I know that's not profound, but that's a fascinating game for me.
So we're going to move on here and talk a little bit about who we like coming out of the Midwest region, get to the Final Four. And you can see Will, you can see Jeff, and unfortunately, Sammy's in Vegas, and I guess the sports book, wherever Sammy is staying there, got hit up pretty good over the weekend because it appears the internet went out at Sammy's hotel. So Sammy's with us. You can hear him, you can't see him, which is we at least for your listeners, we're gonna get all of Sammy's information via phone. But yeah, no more seeing Sammy. But I'm going to start with you, Sammy. Who do you see? You see what I did there? Coming out of the Midwest region and getting to the Final Four, there you got top seed Purdue, second seed Tennessee, third seed Creighton, and fourth seed Kansas, and a bunch of other stuff. What are you thinking there?
Well, first of all, I'm sure in some weird way I look better without video. Like that's probably a thing. I got Creighton coming out. I think that's the region of uncertainty. If Purdue and Tennessee meet in that regional final, the world might end because nobody's going to want to win. So I did put Creighton through. I think they have, we talked about it earlier, their range is just insane. They could be very, very high, very, very low. But I do think them getting to that game against San Diego State last year, losing in heartbreaking fashion, bringing almost everybody back. I like McDermott a lot. I did throw Creighton through bottom right of the region.
Yeah, my bet on Sammy plus 800 to lose his Fox laptop at the blackjack table comes through. So I'm already playing with house money here. I'm with Sammy, though. I'm going to go with Creighton. I like their shot diet. I just think they get a lot at the rim. They get a lot of threes. Anyone that can beat UConn by 15, 20 points, whatever they beat them by, is enough to get my attention. They don't foul defensively. They were very close last year to getting to the Final Four. They really could have won that game against San Diego State. I think they get over the hump this year. I'm going to have Creighton in the Final Four.
Jeffrey?
I don't feel great about it, but I'm going to take Purdue. I just think from what we've seen last year, how they bounced back, that we saw Virginia a couple of years ago sort of make that same run. I think Purdue makes it to the Final Four. I don't think they win it all, but I think they exercise some demons here, Bear, and get it done. Because look, the way I've told you guys, I think Oregon beats Creighton, so that takes Creighton out of it for me, and that leaves Purdue left standing.
Purdue, 7 times been a top 2 seed, never reached the Final Four as a top 2 seed. So we'll see if they can continue the Virginia narrative from a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I went with Creighton too, and again, myself, Sammy, and Will are on them. Again, they're a team that I had them in the Final Four last year at a really nice number, and again, I'm still not over that San Diego State loss, but I think the Jays have a great opportunity to get there. In order to do that, they would have to beat Purdue to get to the Final Four. And Sammy, you wrote a nice little column earlier in the week on a prop that's out there, Purdue and UConn versus the field. And we haven't revealed our title picks yet as to who ultimately we think will win. But it sounds like if you were offering us Purdue and UConn versus the field, it sounds like the 4 of us might be on the field side. What did the people you spoke to about that have to say about it?
Yeah, it's a great prop at Circa, and I talked to Jeff Benson, who's very high on the operational food chain there, and they just decided that we're going to put Purdue and UConn on one side, because at the time they put the market up, it was Purdue, UConn, and Houston, and they said, well, we can't give you all 3 of them, so let's find the theoreticals and let's do the math and play it out. And they wound up with Purdue, UConn against everybody else. And I just can't with Purdue, guys. I just can't. I mean, they haven't been to a Final Four since 1980. And I also think there's a lot of uncertainty for me on, do the officials know how to officiate Zach Edey? I know it's Big Ten season and he's getting every call, but in the big dance, is he that favorable? Is he getting 20, 25 free throws? And I just don't think that's going to happen. So for that bet, I would certainly take the field. It's, almost a 250, 270 favorite. I would lay it for sure. I almost think, Bear, in some weird way, like I'd rather just bet UConn to win the whole thing at 455 to 1 than bet UConn and Purdue, if that makes any sense.
I think that's a better way to do it for sure. Like what was the no price on the field?
So the no as of this morning, no Purdue UConn was minus 270.
So in theory, if we don't like Purdue, you lay the no on the 270, no Purdue or UConn, and we don't. So like no UConn, and then you can take UConn at plus 400 or 400, and then that might be a you could play with around that way. And by the way, I looked at the FDU game last year. Zach Edey took 10 free throws in the game, so it looked like he. And if I remember correctly, weren't most of those in the second half? Like finally they realized, let's get the ball inside to Zach Edey, and so you're right. That is definitely a big thing in the Big Ten, where opponents of Purdue certainly think he gets a fair whistle.
Bear Bets full episodes drop twice a week right here on the Bear Bets YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to stay ahead of the odds, and let's celebrate all of our wins together.